Hey, so one thing I want to address is that when you're training, sometimes it's necessary to adjust the variables so that you're training for what's right for your level of performance at the given time. What I mean by that is if you're knocking out a couple extra sets for hypertrophy, when you're isolating muscle groups like your biceps and triceps, maybe you're doing some bicep curls or tricep extensions, sometimes it's necessary to go for that pump. Not always, but when you're training smaller muscles, sometimes it is. When you're training bigger muscles, it's necessary to go low reps, extremely heavy weight, kick in an extra set, rest for longer, that kind of thing, because you're trying to rest your body enough so that you can lift that heavy weight. But for smaller muscle groups, like biceps, triceps, when you're doing isolation exercises and you're isolating those muscle groups, what sometimes is a lot smarter to dial in your training and technique is to actually go a little bit lighter. And you're supposed to be going lighter than your compound lifts anyway, but sometimes it's necessary to go a little bit lighter than what you would typically expect. And the reason is because you can get away with resting not as long, and you can get away with going high reps and get that pump. So for instance, bicep curls or tricep pushdowns, let's say you select like 40 pounds. Now that's not bad, right? That's not heavy. That's light. And so you do 12 reps of those, easy. But here's the thing. You don't have to rest as long for it to be hard again the next set. So let's say you're doing tricep pushdowns, and it's like you're doing something where it's like the final rep is more like only 40% effort. Well, that way you don't have to rest as long. So then when you go into your second set, boom, it's a little bit harder, right? That next 12 reps, a little bit tougher. Then you rest again, 30 seconds or less. Then boom, you go into your third set, that's all you need. By the time you're there, you're working so hard enough where you are giving close to 100% effort. You are pushing close to failure. So just remember that for certain things, it's actually not necessary to go heavy. And when I say heavy, I mean like your max efforts. Like not everything, guys, should be a 1 rep max. Even though the goal at the end of the day is to get stronger, if that's what you're going for, is strength. And even if you're going for muscle, you still want to get stronger to put on the right kind of muscle. However, sometimes when you're isolating muscle groups, and I would argue that always when you're isolating muscle groups and when you're training smaller muscles with smaller exercises, smaller movements, when you're doing that, it's necessary to not lift as nearly as heavy. Because with big, heavy compound exercises, with those big, heavy presses and pulls, those heavier movements, those movement patterns, when you're progressing in those, of course you should be lifting heavier because more muscle groups are working and they're bigger movements. And you're supposed to be doing those the first thing. You're supposed to be doing those at the start of your workout. So of course, you should be going heavier on those big lifts, like the squats and the bench presses and the rows. But then when you get to your smaller exercises for your smaller muscles, like your isolation exercises, your bicep curls and tricep pushdowns, it's like lighten the weight. It's like you're cooling down. You're just finishing up your workout. Nothing too intense. And it's still going to be intense. You're going to feel it. It's going to be just as hard. But the difference is because they're smaller muscles and they're smaller movements. They're smaller movements only, right? A curl and a push down is a smaller movement than a chest press and a row, right? A row and a chest press are much bigger movements. And so that's why you want to lift lighter. You want to lift lighter because you're only going to be able to handle so much. And with that, your biceps and triceps are smaller muscles anyway. Right? So, and you're only working your biceps and triceps when you're doing isolation exercises like curls and tricep pushdowns. So on that note, make sure you're not lifting as heavy, you're lifting a little bit lighter. And it's really smart to break it up at 3 sets. So 3 sets of only 12. Make it really hard by the last set. What I've learned over the years is that I actually kind of find that sometimes not every set necessarily has to be to failure. Sometimes it's smart to go your first set to maybe like not quite to muscular failure, not quite to where you can't do it anymore. Rest a little bit and then go again, a little bit harder. Rest again. By the time you're doing your third and final set, it's like 2 failure because you're working up to that moment. So sometimes it's smarter to train that way. So just keep that in mind. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, Coops Fitness, as well as follow me on all the other social media platforms. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.